companion to the weekly newsletter. Squirrel coming to you on the morning of Tuesday, October the 22nd, Melbourne time. Quick reminder to make sure that you get the show notes for all those charts and links, and if you don't have them now, fix that by signing up for free at blindsquirrelmacro.com. But as ever, before we start, everything in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is categorically not investment advice. Before making any investment decisions, for heaven's sakes, don't listen to a cartoon rodent. Talk to a financial advisor. Now, after a brief digression into mining last week, we need to return to the central prop of the current equity bull market, the generative AI revolution, in a pod that I'm calling Good, Good Enough, or God, Enough! Now, I'm not going to re-rehearse all of the issues that we set out back in June, but newer listeners might want to check those out in a pod that's named It Ain't Necessarily So. So, cards on the table. This rodent is neither an AI doomer nor even an AGI realist, and he's certainly not part of Mark Andreessen's EAC cult either. While I freely admit to being a layman when it comes to the technology, the research that I've done does not lead me to a view that Gen AI technology offers a credible path to AGI or to superintelligence. There's a piece from Goldman, which I've linked to in the show notes, that provides an excellent summary of the challenges. The squirrel is firmly in the AI agnostic camp. Now, notwithstanding this rodent's belief system, the big tech hyperscalers, and for now their shareholders, are all in when it comes to supporting the immense capex required to build the world of Gen AI's LLMs, or large language models. To the minds of the big tech CEOs, leadership in AI has become existential. They are committed to build it and they'd better come phase of the journey. The tech bros are, of course, they always do, going to get all the electrical power they need. The squirrel's bullishness on nuclear energy long predates and was certainly not precluded upon Silicon Valley's ability to change the narrative at the Sierra Club. They are also going to train models on whatever intellectual property and content they feel like. Big PE is meanwhile salivating at the quantity of OPM, or other people's money, that could be deployed in the cause of this giant LLM build-out. The Gen AI investment boom is a dream come true for the asset gatherers. Then there's Nvidia, aka the Highlander, and other members of the AI picks and shovels cohort, such as those coherent optics plays that we frustratingly got stopped out of earlier in the year, or even AI commodities such as copper and now, even if it was inevitable, uranium. Under the field of dreams scenario, Jensen Huang is a standout winner, especially if you believe in the width of the Highlander's GPU chip and software architecture mode. It's just a question of whether or not you are comfortable with the valuation that you must pay for that leadership. It's the prospects for Nvidia's direct and indirect customers with which this rodent continues to take issue. Now, the cost side of the AI build, which can be put together with a relatively simple spreadsheet, runs up to eye-watering numbers. But the revenues to be delivered off the back of these expenses are much harder to calculate. It's of course true that the online search and advertising giants like Google and Facebook are already pointing to AI's role in increasing customer ad spend and eyeball targeting efficiency. But the associated AI capex is being amortized over 15 years. Is this a bit of a case of smoke and mirrors? The plucky AI startups aspiring to compete in big search cannot point to early wins from the enhancement of existing revenue streams and are still struggling to articulate clearly what multiple revenue streams of the future might look like. I used Perplexity AI to query the business model of Perplexity AI. Maybe a bit of a cheap shot, but there was not much meat on the response. Consumers are probably not going to take issue with better targeted online advertising. However, at the moment, many of us are absolutely loving the transformation of the web search experience created by the likes of even the freemium versions of ChatGPT and Perplexity. We should all enjoy the honeymoon before we are faced with the choice of either a chunky subscription fee or a return to the customary eyeball auction. Given the costs of LLMs, and sorry to break it to you, but we're probably going to get both. The intrusion of AI into other aspects of consumers' lives is less welcome. The squirrel's LinkedIn timeline was already enough of a hell swamp of spam, fortune cookie life coaching tips, virtue signaling, and cheery fun run updates, even before the app decided to start offering some frankly banal AI prompts to the engagement farmers. Somebody appears to have seen sense on that front. They appear to have quietly dropped it. In fact, other areas of consumer and enterprise AI are starting to deliver real value. My friends Darren and Charlie, co-founders of Harkster AI and formerly of London-based macro shop Stone Milliner, have developed an AI co-pilot to manage the tsunami of email research flow that hits institutional buy-side desks every minute of the working day. Now, the squirrel doesn't happily have to drink from that fire hose these days, but was an impressed Harkster pilot program member. The prompts there at Harkster have been designed by former traders to capture actionable content from emails and effectively turning your inbox into a searchable database. It works well, and the summaries are vastly superior to the output of other off-the-shelf ChatGPT API'd AI summarizers that I've been trialing. Obviously, I would prefer that my readers savour every one of my finely tuned words of prose, but if you really must have my work summarised by a robot, do make sure it's a Harkster AI summary. I put an example of the output in the show notes, and please get in touch with me if you'd like an introduction to Darren and Charlie. For comparison, I put the same report from last week into Google's Notebook LM podcast generator. Bloomberg describes this tool as dazzling, but I do not believe it'll put their own podcasting stars out of a job anytime soon. You can rest at ease, Joe Wiesenthal. A link to the RoboPod is in this week's letter. Do check it out, but I warn you that it'll be 12 minutes of your life that you are never getting back. I think the podcasters are safe for now, but the proliferation of what TechCrunch calls AI-generated slop on today's internet is starting to have a major impact on the world of content creation. LLM-generated articles are clogging up our news feeds. A meta thought, but maybe a major use case for AI co-pilots of the future, will be to weed out the content created by other machines. I have a lot of time for the idea that content, both journalism and social media, looks set for a return to curated walled gardens, free from the bot-driven noise. The world of enterprise software is starting to see value in authentic content as a tool for customer retention, and I'm beginning to understand why. I want to turn my attention to the software engineers. I sometimes worry that my readers and listeners might think that this rodent is a bit harsh when it comes to the good citizens of Palo Alto, but this squirrel is worried about the coders. AI would appear to be coming for them hard. Shrill tones from Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff deriding Microsoft's Copilot as Clippy 2.0 would suggest that enterprise software leaders are seeing some writing on the wall. They're facing an existential threat from a pincer movement of both bundled Copilot products from the hyperscalers and the emergence of AI-enabled personal software. Now, Chamath & Co.'s cringe-inducing all-in pod is a bridge too far for the squirrel, and you can't avoid the clips on Twitter anyway, but I do make sure that I listen to the weekly Lesson Morin double date of mostly objective tech commentary that is The Information's More or Less podcast. The pod's former Facebook exec, VC, and self-styled hobbyist coder, Dave Morin, made some bold calls a week ago on the show that made this rodent hit rewind twice. He claims that we've already passed the Turing test on software engineering. He went on to say, and I quote, "I think that there's a foundational massive breakthrough in software engineering that has happened in the past 3 months that people are not paying attention to. I was able to build an app for myself in a couple of weeks using AI software engineering tools, which previously would have cost $1 to $2 million in seed capital, 5 people, and 12 to 18 months of time to build." Dave puts together a fascinating thesis. It's worth listening to the full thing, in fact, and there's a link to it in the notes. In our SaaS Unicorns pod the other day, we had already zeroed in on the risk of featureization of bundled AI chatbots and copilots by the cloud giants, such as Microsoft, Google, Amazon, etc., that were posing risks to the enterprise software market. We would appear to be on the cusp of what Morin calls personal software, a revolution in which corporate IT departments can easily and cheaply, with the assistance of tools like Claude Sonnet, Coding Copilot, build their own customized CRMs, apps, or systems, and thereby avoid paying rent to the enterprise software giants. In that world, it's going to take a lot more than Balaji's suggestion of a bundled industry newsletter to reduce customer churn. In recent weeks, the stock prices of SaaS and cloud players have pulled back some of the dominant leadership away from the semiconductor sector that has been literally dominating since the real reveal of ChatGPT in November of 2022. And I don't think this is the start of a major fight back by Team SaaS relative to the chip makers. It feels like merely a function of the re-emergence of some market breadth as investors gradually pare back some of their Magnificent Seven overweight positions. Don't get me wrong, the Squirrel has no desire to buy into the semiconductor at this stage of the cycle. I stand by my thesis that the hyperscalers will continue to buy Jensen's GPUs as they continue in their existential quest for AI leadership. But I also think that most of this CapEx activity is largely already baked into NVIDIA's multiple. However, this rodent has a hunch that the world of enterprise SaaS is entering a new world of pain, and they'll be hearing a lot more rants from Mr. Benioff. Get more Inquiring Rodent at blindsquirrelmacro.com. In section 2 of the letter for paid subscribers this week, we leave behind the world of AI and address some timely presidential election hedging strategies. You can also find me on Twitter at SquirrelMacro. Thanks again for listening. If you enjoy your weekly dose of the Squirrel, please ping a link to a friend. Would be much appreciated. Squirrel out.